Hola, cage fighting connoisseurs. This is Kid Nate of BloodyElbow.com, and I'm coming at you with a bathrobe review of UFC on Fox 5 and the Manny Pacquiao versus Juan Manuel Marquez 4 fight that happened last night. All in all, it was a incredible night of combat sports action for fans. I don't think that if you bought the pay-per-view and watched the UFC on Fox special and the UFC on FX prelims, then you had to have come away satisfied. It was an incredible night of combat sports action. On the whole, I would say boxing came out ahead of MMA on the evening, if only because while the UFC on Fox was very good, I would say good to very good, 3.5 to 4 stars out of 5. I would say that the Pacquiao versus Marquez fight was an all-time classic, a historical moment in boxing, a historical moment in combat sports. There's the image of Pacquiao flat on his face after being knocked out cold by Marquez in the 6th round is an indelible one that will stick with me and any fight fan who watched it for the rest of their lives. I have to say it was an incredible fight, an incredible moment, and nothing in the UFC broadcast came even close. But let's run through the fights, starting at the beginning, starting with the Facebook fight, the single Facebook fight between Scott Jorgensen and John Albert that kicked off the UFC on Fox broadcast or live event. Excellent fight. It was a grappling affair. Went all the way to the very last second of the first round when Jorgensen got Albert down on his face, was riding his back, got the hooks in, got the rear naked choke, and got the tap out with only a second left. It was really kind of a heartbreaking performance for Albert because he dominated the position early on, and something I didn't expect him to do against an able wrestler in Jorgensen, and very nearly was very close to getting the tap himself with a number of submission attacks. But Jorgensen came through, showed why he's been one of the top contenders in the UFC's bantamweight division for a long time. This is a top-notch guy. I don't know that he's at the very highest echelon of the weight class, but he's certainly a force to be reckoned with in the bantamweight division, and John Albert will have to go back to the drawing board. And that brings us to the 6-fight UFC on FX card that went on before the UFC on Fox segment of the program. All in all, an excellent card, top to bottom. The Dennis Siver versus Nam Phan fight that opened it was excellent, if not spectacular. I'd give that probably, I don't know, I'd give the first fight, Jorgensen and Albert, I would give that 4 out of 5 stars. The Siver versus Phan fight, I would give probably 3 out of 5 stars. Siver was clearly dominant over Nam Phan. An excellent performance by Siver. He's very big for a featherweight and a very skilled striker. He's also showed some skill on the ground. He got Nam Phan down and dominated from the top, although he never really threatened to finish the fight. That's the only thing that's holding the fight back from being a real classic, was there was no clear finish, just a grinding, dominant performance from Dennis Siver, who's somebody I look forward to seeing move up to stiffer competition in the featherweight division. Would like to see him make a contender's run at the title. And then up next we had Abel Trujillo versus Marcus Levasseur. Trujillo really impressed in his UFC debut. Levasseur came in on short notice, although he had originally been scheduled to fight on the card, so it wasn't like he hadn't been training, but he had a period where he thought he wasn't fighting, and then a week later they say, oh, you're on, and he jumped in with 1 day's notice yesterday. And so that has to be hard on a fighter thinking they're going to fight, then they're not going to fight, then they are going to fight. Nonetheless, Trujillo really impressed. He caught Levasseur coming in with some knees, and then fended off the takedowns, and then just worked him with elbows to the head and punches to the head while Levasseur was working for a takedown up against the cage. And then once Trujillo had dominant position, just murderized him with knees to the body, knees to the shoulder, some knees to the face when he was standing. It was brutal. Ended 3:56 into the second round. I'd give that fight 4 out of 5 stars. A very impressive performance from Trujillo at lightweight. I'm very curious to see how he'll do against stiffer UFC competition. Up next, we had Darren Cruikshank versus Henry Martinez. Incredible performance from the Detroit superstar. I was teasing a little bit about the guy's nickname being the Detroit superstar because, frankly, he's not a superstar at this point in his career, but a few more performances like that, and he will be. He really impressed. He used a lot of taekwondo, a lot of fancy kicks against Martinez, and was just having his way with him. Finally finished him with a head kick KO at 2:57 in the second round. I'd have to give that fight 4 out of 5 stars. Again, that was excellent. That really had the momentum of the night building nicely. I look forward to seeing Cruikshank again. I would love to see him against John Makdessi, of all people, in kind of a Taekwondo versus Taekwondo fight that I think could have some interesting fireworks. Would be an unusual, striking combination for UFC fans. And then we had Ramsey Nijem versus Joe Proctor. Went to a 3-round decision, unanimous decision. Back and forth fight, though. Good fight. I'd give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Proctor was pretty impressive, fending off Nijem's wrestling attacks. He didn't do enough to win, but he did have his moments in the fight. Very impressive performance from both guys. Up next, probably the worst fight on the whole card, Rafael Asankao versus Mike Easton. Unanimous 3-round decision. Easton's just somebody, he's got all the physical tools. He trains with a good camp with Lloyd Irvin and the Alliance, but he just doesn't put it together. He's fast, he's quick, he's skilled, but he doesn't put it together. He's not aggressive enough. He was bobbing and moving and feinting, but he wasn't attacking. And Asankao really learned to time his charges and was landing some hard counter punches. Pretty stinky fight. I'd give it 2 out of 5 stars. Hopefully Easton will go back to the drawing board and come back with a sense of urgency, as it is Asankao in the bantamweight division. Might be a bit of a force to be reckoned with. I'd like to see him move up against competition. Now, up next, the highlight of the card for me personally, Yves Edwards, a beloved veteran of the sport, at one time the uncrowned UFC lightweight champion in a period when they didn't have a lightweight title. Yves was at the top of the division and probably would have been the champ at the time. Then he went off to Pride and had a kind of run of bad luck. He traveled around. He went to Strikeforce, fought for the title, got murked. I wasn't expecting much against Jeremy Stephens. Jeremy Stephens is somebody who hits really hard. Yves Edwards is somebody whose chin has shown a little bit of vulnerability in recent years against Sam Stout, against KJ Nunes and others. I really thought Stephens was going to clown him. Turned out the other way around. Edwards clowned Stephens, and richly deserved. Stephens is up on some criminal charges in Iowa that have the fans not liking him too much. He's accused by Iowa authorities of beating a friend of his, a returning serviceman just back from Iraq, beating the guy into the ICU in an ugly parking lot brawl. So not a lot of love for Jeremy Little Heathen Stephens, and Yves Edwards clowned him. It was a thing of beauty right at the end of the first round. Caught him coming in with a beautiful counter right hand, and then finished it with ground and pound. I'd have to give that a 4.5 out of 5 stars. One of the most exciting moments of the night. And that brings us to the Fox broadcast proper. Matt Brown and Mike Swick. A lot of people expected Swick, including myself, expected Swick to dominate Brown and just show that he's, one step ahead of Brown. I'd classified Brown before the fight as a UFC gatekeeper, and Mike Swick is somebody that was a UFC contender. Not anymore. Swick had nothing for Brown. Brown beat him on the feet, beat him on the ground, beat him in the takedown battles, every aspect of the fight. I'd have to give this fight 3.5, 4 out of 5 stars. Excellent fight, excellent performance from a gritty Matt Brown. He finally got the knockout 231 into the second round. I think Matt Brown has finally staked his claim as somebody who's for real in the welterweight division. I look forward to seeing him against some stiffer competition. As for Swick, might be time for Mike Quick Swick to retire. He's never really put together the UFC career he'd hoped for. He hasn't matched the achievements of some of his contemporaries from the Ultimate Fighter show. I think guys like Kenny Florian or Chris Lieben, Josh Koscheck, Diego Sanchez, all these guys pretty much left Mike Swick and eating their dust. He had a long and successful UFC career, but he never put it together for a title run in either the middleweight or the welterweight divisions, and at this point I don't see it happening. He had a couple years out because of some ill health with some esophageal issues, and I think he's lost a step or more. I don't see him coming back. And then another sad ending to a career potentially was BJ Penn against Rory McDonald. I'd give this fight 3 out of 5 stars. The first 2 rounds were 4.5 out of 5 stars, but McDonald led off on the gas pedal and coasted into a decision, which is not the right answer when you're trying to make a big impression on a mass audience on Fox TV. McDonald had everything for Penn. He beat him striking, he beat him grappling, beat him in the takedown battle. Penn really had no answers for McDonald, and McDonald didn't go for the kill. He was content to coast to a decision, and that's just not a good look when you're beating up a beloved, legendary figure in the sport like BJ Penn. You need to go for the finish. You owe it to the fans. You owe it to your opponent to do your very best and prosecute the fight as vigorously as possible. And McDonald just frankly coasted. not a good look, and especially for a guy who's openly saying he won't fight the champion George St. Pierre. What do they do with Rory McDonald? I mean, do you have him fight Johnny Hendricks and eliminate a potential title challenger from George St. Pierre? I mean, what do you do? I'm sure St. Pierre would love that if Rory McDonald just acted as his enforcer and beat anybody that was threatening to come take GSP's title away while refusing to challenge the title himself. Not a pretty situation. The two train together at Firas Zahabi's TriStar gyms in Canada, and I think these guys need to be forced into the octagon. I think Roy McDonald should be put in a position where he has to challenge GSP. I think that's the answer. Up next, the penultimate fight on the UFC on Fox card pitted Alexander Gustafsson against Mauricio Shogun Rua in a light heavyweight challenge. Both these guys have been promised title shots in the months before this fight. Gustafsson was promised a title shot again after winning this fight, and it's already looking like it's being yanked away, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The fight itself was good, if not excellent. I'd give it 3 out of 5 stars. Gustafsson struggled with Shogun. He dominated. He got a unanimous decision, even got a 10-8 round on one judge's scorecards for a 30-26 score. Nonetheless, Shogun was in the fight from start to finish. He was headhunting. He was preventing Gustafsson from really teeing off on him. He landed some hard right hands. And Gustafsson, he was dominant, he was impressive, but he wasn't awe-inspiring. He's not somebody that I think a lot of fans watched this and said, man, that guy can beat John Jones. I think a lot of people came away saying, yeah, I'd watch him fight John Jones, but I'm not expecting him to win. And it looks like he's going to have to go through another stiff challenge against Lyoto Machida at UFC 157. Machida had been booked to face Dan Henderson, another pair of guys who've been promised title shots at various points against John Jones, but are going to have to wait. Jones fights Chael Sonnen next April. Gustafsson now might have to face Machida, and I don't like his chances in that fight. Machida's got a very tricky style. Shogun Rua was one of the few people that was able to solve it. John Jones was able to overcome it with sheer size and mass. Gustafsson has the size. I don't think he has the power of John Jones, and I think he's going to struggle with Machida's very, very tricky and elusive striking style. Then that brings us to the title fight between Ben Henderson and Nate Diaz fighting for the lightweight belt. A lot of people, including myself, predicted Nate Diaz would take home the title. It was not to be. Benson Henderson did everything to disrupt the Diaz box him up game. He closed range, forced the clinch, used low leg kicks. The Diaz style is infamously vulnerable to leg kicks, and Ben Henderson was all over it, swept him to the ground with a couple of leg kicks at various points on the ground, more than held his own with the Cesar Gracie black belt. I'd give this fight probably 3.5 out of 5 stars. It was a good fight, but it was a grinding 5-round decision. Good for Fox ratings, presumably. I would hope that it picked up followers, but as the fight went along rather than losing him, because the action never really slacked, but it never looked like it was closing in on a finish either. Ben Henderson's got a fighting style that works really well for winning rounds. It doesn't work so well for finishing fights. He never really had Diaz in imminent danger of being finished, although they exchanged some submission holds, particularly some leg locks. A lot of leg lock attempts in the Shogun Rua versus Gustafsson fight. I have to wonder what the Fox audience was thinking of all those leg locks attempts. A lot to process when you're seeing mixed martial arts for the first time. And again, I don't think the UFC has put on that epic fight on the Fox platform yet. I was hoping to see it last night and just didn't. Frustrating. UFC put together a fine night of fights for Fox. I'm hopeful that the ratings were good. Nonetheless, all the oxygen in the room for combat sports was stolen by the Pacquiao-Marquez fight. What a fight. The rest of the pay-per-view card, frankly, not very good. Some pretty lame fights before that. Gamboa, 50 Cent performing before the Gamboa fight was probably the highlight of the card before Pacquiao-Marquez walked their way into the ring. But, man, once it was on, it was on. What a great fight. Great performance from Manny Pacquiao for most of the fight. He made 2 mistakes in the fight. One cost him a knockdown, I believe, in the 3rd round when Marquez caught him with a hard right out of nowhere that put him on his ass. The second time, at the very end of the 6th round, Marquez dropped him out cold. But otherwise, Pacquiao put together a brilliant strategy with Freddie Roach. He was using head movement to confuse Marquez. He was using a lot of left hands. He was catching Marquez. He had him bloodied up and battered and was going for the kill. He thought he had Marquez on the ropes. He thought he was going to be able to finish Marquez. Charged in, never saw the fatal right hand coming. Marquez caught him with a beautiful straight right, flush on the jaw, right in the nose, just kunk. and Pacquiao was out cold. At this point, Pacquiao's looking at retirement or a fifth bout against Marquez. They've already fought 4 times. Pacquiao winning 2 and getting 1 draw before the knockout from Marquez. Marquez has emphatically stated a case for being one of the great boxers of his generation. I'm curious to see if there's going to be any talk of a possible Floyd Mayweather on Manuel Marquez fight. That would be something I think would be interesting to fans. But right now the question is whether or not Pacquiao is going to retire or whether he's going to seek a 5th fight against Marquez, which I would assume would do banner business. But the Pacquiao-Mayweather fight probably not ever going to happen. For the last 2 years, there's been the possibility of boxing putting together a once-in-a-generation super fight that would have truly compelled mass attention, been the fight of the year, fight of the decade, fight of the century. Didn't happen. Mayweather seemed like he didn't want the fight. Pacquiao seemed like he didn't want the fight. More importantly, Bob Arum on Pacquiao's side and Golden Boy Promotions on Mayweather's side did not want to fight Oscar De La Hoya and his crew. Everybody stands to make more money on slightly smaller fights if they don't have to slice the pie with the other big dogs, so why do it? It's an unfortunate attitude, I think, from boxing, and it's cost them the super fight. But nonetheless, the fight that the fans did get was excellent, an incredible war between Pacquiao and Marquez. Hard to say that the better man won with Pacquiao dominating the fight the way he did, but you can't take anything away from Marquez. He dug deep. He survived the onslaught from Pacquiao. He's bloodied. He's battered. He's backing up against the ropes. He sees Pacquiao coming in, dropping his guard for just a second as he's going in for the kill. Still had the presence of mind to land the incredible counter right hand and put Pacquiao down flat on his face. Incredible fight, incredible performance. I'd have to say it was easily the fight of the night, fight of the week, fight of the month, probably the fight of the year. A fight that's going to go down in boxing fan legend. What can you say? Score 1 for boxing. I'm a fan of all combat sports, so I'm pumped. But got to be a little frustrating for Dana White to have his big night on Fox once again, completely outshone by Manny Pacquiao and boxing. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel on MMA Nation. You'll get all our videos as soon as I record them. You could even watch some of these live as I shoot them. We'll be back this week with MMA tete-a-tetes with Dallas Winston and Eugene S. Robinson. Maybe we'll get Luke Thomas back on the air for another one. Maybe I'll have some interviews. We'll see what I can put together. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow. We'll see you next time. Take care.